Hey, it's me, and I'm actually doing my very first reflection here from the Bonner house after coming back from the trip. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I still haven't slept, but that's okay. I've been processing some of the reflections that the other students have been doing on the trip, as well as just kind of hanging out a little bit and taking a break, so that's been good. But I felt bad because I have been so busy working on getting the reflections up on our crazy slow internet at the hotel during the break that I didn't get the chance to do my own reflections because it was usually like 4 in the morning before I had finished that. So I wanted to do some now and just talk a little bit about the experiences that I had as a trip coordinator during our week, one of the trip coordinators during our week of the alternative spring break trip to Nashville, Tennessee with Concord University. It started out kind of crazy. I have to admit that when the moment came at about 5 o'clock that we left from Concord University, I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, almost in panic mode, just to make sure. This is one of the largest trips that I've ever been a part of, and definitely the largest trip that I've ever been in charge of, like finding logistics and other situations for. So I had a lot of things on my mind, and a lot of things going on to make sure that we had directions in the vehicles, that we had radios in the vehicles, that we had people checking in, and make sure that everyone had signed all the forms they needed to sign. And it was pretty crazy for me to begin with at the first point, and I was kind of running around. And I really appreciate the help that I got in doing that. My boss Kathy actually had to stay afterwards because I had forgotten before I left to do my dishes, and she actually did my dishes for me here at the Bonner house after I left, and I felt really bad about that, but I really appreciate her for doing that. And my friends Tresca and Christine also helped to check in all the trip participants, and Alex took care of getting the snacks that Aramark so kindly donated to us for the road, and getting the luggage packed on the van. So we all worked together as a team, and it definitely wouldn't have happened to have a smooth leaving for that without their assistance. So I really appreciate all their help, and I wanted to say that to begin with. So we hit the road for the very, very long journey to Nashville, Tennessee. It takes about 7 hours from there, and we left at 5 o'clock at night, and we crossed into Central Time, and it was just a fun experience overall. It wasn't too bad on the way down because it's mostly interstate the entire way, so we didn't have a whole lot of trouble with that, although I have to admit we had to stop pretty quickly for people to go to the bathroom, and I was like, I want to get going and get past Virginia, but we didn't get quite that far before we stopped, but it was okay. And so we went on about that, and it was, you know, driving and driving and driving, and I began to wonder how long it took to go to Nashville, and would joke with my friends. I was like, who exactly decided that it would be a good idea to go to Nashville? And then I remembered that it was me. But anyway, we went to Nashville, and we got in kind of late to our hotel, and they were real great about welcoming us, the Baymont Inn and Suites in Goodlettsville, and I just wanted to thank them for their hospitality this week. They were there staying up late, making sure that we would be able to check in and get our rooms and get settled, and so that was really great. So first night we just hit the sack, and we had to wake up very early the next morning. As a matter of fact, we had our first meeting at 7 o'clock with the group so that we could get kind of the announcements made for the day and to go out to our first service sites. And which was interesting because our first day begins with us going to different locations. We had brought 35 people on our trip, and 35 people including the two trip coordinators. So we had to break up into teams of 17 because most of the agencies down there in Nashville just cannot handle that many volunteers at once, 35 volunteers all at one time. As a matter of fact, most of the agencies down there can't handle more than about 5 or 6. So I had a lot of difficulty in planning this trip and finding agencies that were willing to host a big group like that. But at the same time, I didn't want to take a smaller group because I wanted to make sure that the most students that we could, take would get this experience because we had unprecedented interest in this trip. I mean, I was just completely astonished by the interest that we had. I just looked at myself at the camera, so I apologize for that. I was astonished by the unprecedented interest that we had in the trip because before the Bonner House has coordinated a few service trips for Katrina relief during spring break and other times, and we've had a good turnout for those, but not nearly as good of a turnout as this, having people waitlisted and waiting very up to the last minute to find out whether or not they could go. So that was pretty exciting. But with groups like that, we had to break up on the first day, and half of our group went to the Nashville Rescue Mission, and the other half of our group went to a place called the Campus for the Human Development. And we worked up that day, and it turns out I had no idea about this at the time, and I probably should have, because the directions actually to get there are different, which is interesting enough. But the Nashville Rescue Mission and the Campus for Human Development are like a block away from each other. So we ended up actually working about a block away from each other and didn't know that until about midday when we had to go meet up for lunch. As part of the trip experience, and also, to keep costs low, but mostly it's for the experience, we had decided that students would be eating the meals that the clients and participants in the programs would also be eating. So each day except for the free day, we had at least one meal that we ate at the Nashville Rescue Mission, who serves hundreds of individuals each day who are experiencing homelessness or just down on their luck that come in through their doors to get that meal. And so each day we ate there. And so that's when we found out that it was only a block away. Wendy, the director of the Campus for Human Development, decided that she was like, what are you guys doing for lunch? And we're like, oh, we're going to go over to the mission. And she's like, you realize it's like right there, right? And she points at this building with a giant mission logo that I actually recognized and didn't notice until she pointed at it. And I was like, oh. And I was like, so we can just walk over there. And so, yeah, we decided to take the walk over there during the day and go eat the lunch. And the very first lunch that we had became affectionately known by many members of our group and actually picked up by Wendy as Noodle Surprise. And that was just because the noodle concoction that they made, it was actually very tasty. I liked it. But it was like the stew that had spaghetti and every seven or eight different kinds of noodles in it. And so it was good, but again, it was something that was kind of unexpected. And I know that a lot of people on the trip didn't like it. I liked it just fine, but a lot of people didn't like it. So it was an interesting experience, because if we went out to eat at McDonald's or somewhere, at least you'd have a choice on what you got. But when you eat at the National Rescue Mission, you get what you're served. And they expect you to eat it, because you don't want to go to waste. So our group, for the most part, tried their very best to eat that food. And some of them liked it and some of them didn't. And so that was interesting. But that was part of the experience that they had. So we ate our meals there. And I know several of them that night ended up going out to dinner on their own to kind of compensate for that. Not only because the meal wasn't adequate, but also because there are some interesting dining locations in Nashville that they wanted to visit. And so we went to there and people ate. So that was pretty good. Our work at the Campus for the Human Development went pretty interestingly. We were first introduced, and my group went to the Campus for Human Development on the first day. We were first introduced to the entire facility, and it was really amazing, the services to me that they were offering there. I was quite astonished because I wasn't even aware of all that they had done in researching them for the trip. They had a huge focus on art, which I think was very interesting. And I actually looked around, and they have several clients that are very talented that have created amazing works of art. And that's probably one of the things that really stuck out in my mind the most, was just almost how lucky they are to be able to facilitate something like that. Because I know a lot of my friends that are very good at art and very natures. Art is exactly my thing, but a lot of my friends, and they just don't have the time to invest in it. And in some ways, it's almost good that, these people who have real talent are getting a chance to express it. I mean, naturally, they would probably prefer to have a job and to be, not having to use the campus's services at all. But to some degree, it's almost envious to see the amount of time that they can have to just invest in things like art to express themselves. And I think it's a very therapeutic thing for them, too. I'm glad that that's a service that they offer, that they can go in there and just kind of have a way of expressing the way they feel and for feeling human and feeling like they can make and accomplish something, and something that they may not have felt recently because they've been down on their luck and been unable to, find employment or find a home. And so it's something for them to kind of take a value in and something to invest themselves in. And I really liked it. And there are some works of art that are worthy of gallery publishing in that place. And we're going to actually post videos of some of those and pictures of some of those on our website. So I hope you'll check those out. But that was one thing that really stuck out, not only with me, but with many of the trip participants, was the artwork there at the Campus for the Human Development that they created in the beautiful art room that they have looking down on the Nashville skyline for their clients to go in as part of their activities that they do there. So that was probably the thing that stuck out in my mind the most. Another kind of interesting story from that day was when we went to a building that was on campus that had been used as a storage facility. Just because you're homeless doesn't mean that you don't have any property. And, it's difficult sometimes when you're walking around the streets trying to find jobs to be able to take all your property with you. And, of course, you can't leave it at a home that doesn't exist. So the facility had decided to create a storage building to let people have a little cubby to kind of keep their stuff in during the day. And our project was to go over there and work with it, but the reason why was because, unfortunately, apparently a disgruntled client or a disgruntled public member, they're not exactly sure, had actually set fire to a portion of the building and had damaged everything in it. The building was a total loss and is going to be torn down. And our job was to go in there and to salvage some of the materials that were in there, including some of those storage cubbies, to move inside the main building so that that service could continue to be offered to the homeless individuals that were participants in the programs there at the campus as well. We also went in there and kind of cleaned out some of the clothes and other donations. There was food and clothes and just a lot of